So in this video, I'm probably going to piss off a lot of South Africans because we're going to be diving into the great land debate. Because arguing over dirt is a national sport. I'm sure you've heard the claim before that white people in South Africa own 71.9% of land. But is this really the full story? Let's grab a shovel and start digging.
My wife, she get here.
Did I hear that correctly? Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Newsflash. I'm your host Joe Emilio. Thanks for tuning in. Now I want to mention that all the info I'm going to talk about is from the IRR's report, Who Owns the Land? The link to read the full report is in the description. I'm going to focus on the lie that the ANC and EFF keep spreading about land ownership in South Africa. Alright, so let's break this down like a dodgy land deal. South Africa is about 122 million hectares big. That's all the land, cities, farms, mountains, deserts, including your uncle's illegal backyard tavern. Now, here's where it gets tricky. The government's 2017 land audit says that 94 million hectares, that's 77%, is privately owned. And 28 million hectares, 23%, is state-owned. But the famous 71.9% figure only refers to a small slice of the pie, individually owned farmland. Of the 37 million hectares of farmland owned by individuals, white individuals own 71.9%, 26.6 million hectares. Black individuals just own 3.5%, 1.3 million hectares. The rest is split between colored, Indian, and other. Now this is where the ANC and EFF usually go, see, white people own all the land, let's expropriate. But hold on to your nil compensation for just a moment, because there's a detail that they've conveniently left out, because there's someone that owns more land. In a plot twist, the government actually owns more land than any racial group. That's right, folks, the people in power, the ones shouting land reform, they're literally sitting on more land than anyone else. The government or state owns 28 million hectares or 23% of the country. Meanwhile, individually owned white farmland is only 21.9% of South Africa's total land. The remaining land is owned by companies, trusts, and community organizations, which means that when politicians cry about private land, they're ignoring that much of it isn't owned by individuals at all. So the 71.9% claim is very misleading.
Shocker.
Now here's why the 71.9% statistic is dodgier than a government tender process. It only looks at farmland. It ignores urban land, businesses, and trust-held land. It ignores state-owned land, like national parks, government buildings, and entire rural communities still controlled by the state. Most of that white-owned farmland is dry, rocky areas where the only thing growing is the unemployment rate. 43% of white-owned farmland is in the Northern Cape. And have you ever seen the Northern Cape? There's more sand than farmland. Meanwhile, in places where the land is good, like KZN or Limpopo, white farmland ownership is under 15%. So if we're going to expropriate, maybe we should take that lovely government-owned land first. I'm just saying.
That's an idea.
And there's something that the politicians also love to ignore, and that's the fact that land has been given back to black people. As a matter of fact, over 8 million hectares has been transferred to black South Africans since 1994. But here's the kicker. The government refuses to give title deeds.
Shocker.
That means millions of people technically live on state-owned land, even though it was supposed to be redistributed. Instead of giving full ownership, the government holds on to the land, like a jealous ex who won't let go. So when Ramaphosa says black people own 4% of individually owned land, he's conveniently ignoring the millions of hectares that government handed over, but kept the paperwork. The real question is, what is the government actually doing? And let's be real, this is not about fixing land ownership. If it were, the government would be handing out title deeds left, right, and center, unlocking wealth for millions of South Africans. Instead, they're using selective stats to create panic, push political agendas, and avoid taking responsibility for the land they already control. So next time someone tries to scream in your face that white people own 71.9% of the land, here's some facts to throw at them. The 71.9% is only individual-owned farmland, not all land. The government owns more land than any racial group. A lot of that farmland is basically dry wasteland. Millions of hectares have already been redistributed, but people don't get title deeds. If politicians really wanted to fix things, they'd start with state-owned land. But that would require actual leadership. And we all know that's harder to find than a pothole-free road in South Africa. At the end of the day, we are clearly being lied to, ladies and gentlemen, and this is all to sow division in South Africa. Not to mention erode your property rights. This 71.9% land ownership of white people narrative is used to justify the Expropriation Act that was recently signed into law, which means it gives the government unprecedented power because the government can literally take your land or property for zero compensation. And I know what some of the comments in the comment section are going to say already.
Oh, those stats are racist. That's racist stats. IRR is a racist organization.
But you're only saying that because you, without realizing it, have been brainwashed. The ANC and EFF have fed you lies, and what's worse is you are convinced that the government will actually give you land. And you won't, because you won't have a title deed. You will own nothing and be expected to be happy. You will work like a dog on that land just to keep it, and all your earnings will be given to the government, and then the government will decide how much you get paid. Sound familiar?
Seem a bit communist.
Make no mistake, the ANC wants to expropriate everyone's land. Doesn't matter what race you are. And they'll probably start with the white farmers at some point, but then slowly but surely, black farmers, black individuals, every South African will be affected by this. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And just to drive this point home a little further, let's have a look at this interview on Biz News with Gabriel Kraus, an IRR fellow who was discussing this report. Here is something very interesting that he said in this interview.
The truth is everyone's property rights are under threat. And, I'm sorry I'm going on here, but a lot of people that I've said this to think I'm trying to just be clever. Like, no, don't we actually know it's really white guys whose land people want to take? That is really the target. But let me tell you about the CPA Amendment Act. I mentioned CPAs earlier, these 3 million hectares of land owned by 500,000 black people. The CPA Amendment Act last year said that those black people are no longer allowed to sell their land, lease their land, mortgage their land, or in any way encumber their land without the consent of a registrar coming out of the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. It's been months. That registrar doesn't exist. That means all of those people's rights to sell their property, lease their property, mortgage their property has been annihilated. Those are all black people, land reform beneficiaries whose property rights have been eviscerated. It is not an academic point to make that people of all races are under attack. Black people are certainly not exempt from the predations of this attempt to eviscerate Section 25 of the Bill of Rights. And all South Africans need to stand together and try and defend that clause in our Bill of Rights to say we all, if you own something, deserve to be protected by the state, not abused by the state.
If you haven't seen the full video, I encourage everyone to go watch it. Link is in the description. But this is proof that the government has no intention of redistributing the land. Any South African who believes this has clearly drank the Kool-Aid, and I really hope we can reverse the Expropriation Act before it's too late. But let me know your thoughts on all this in the comment section below, ladies and gentlemen. While you're down there, leave a like on this video, share it far and wide, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've got more content coming your way, and don't forget, become a member, man. Subscribe, become a member, support this channel, support me and what we do on this channel. Your support goes a long way to supporting this channel, so please become a member or give us super thanks or Sasa thanks, as we call it on this channel. All the details below this video, ladies and gentlemen. With all that being said, thanks for watching. Your newsflash is in.
So now I'm tripping balls, right? Steve's in the corner puking his guts out.
Let's go to the zoo.
Ray, I told you I was going to take you to the zoo tomorrow, okay? All right. So then Mike walks in with an 8-ball, and I'm
Let's go to the zoo.
Ray, I told you I'll take you to the fucking zoo tomorrow, okay?
You said fuck.
I know I did. And if you tell your mom, I'm not going to take you to the zoo.
I won't tell.
Good man. So anyways, Steve's still puking,
I gotta
right?
go to bed.
Bro, I'm not done with my story.
I gotta go to bed.
All right. Well, hey, before you go to bed, can you grab me a beer from the fridge?
Sure.
Thanks, dude.